So 4Blocks is about taking all of your primary responsibilities and distilling those down into 4 distinct areas. Those are our primary drivers. That's where the awareness becomes very clear in what guides us in our day-to-day activities, and most important, in prioritizing those activities. I'd like to bring awareness to job responsibilities. I think there's a lot of confusion in the workplace about exactly what responsibilities are. There's so many things that are required for a person in their day-to-day activity to do. I think on one hand, there's a risk at breaking down responsibilities to the point where you have this list of things you do. Now keep in mind, we're talking about a team. We're talking about a team of individuals with different responsibilities, but here's the key to a team that flows very, very well. They're in sync. They're in sync with what other people's responsibilities are. They're in sync with results in the whole team. So what I've decided to do with this is to take what can be a kind of a daunting list of responsibilities and get into the mindset of a new employee. And I think if we can get something translated through to a new employee and what we want to do in terms of not just the vision of the company, but what they need to do day to day. This is really where the magic happens. It's day to day in each responsibility and role. There's so many different overlapping things that need to occur where people step in and they help one another with different roles in the office. But there's also different things that people do within an exact team that have somewhat the same responsibility in an office. But the flow that occurs is if we can take this and break it down into a fashion to bring awareness to the priorities that need to exist day to day. And I'd like to say boots on the ground, but day to day what happens when they're sitting in that chair, when they're sitting facing a patient, when they're on the phone, or when they're in the operatory interfacing with a patient. Now this is where I think it becomes very important to break this down. And once again, when I break this down, I'd like to say, if I had to break it down into areas, I'd say let's pick 4 areas that we can break each individual role down into 4 responsibilities. When we deal with many responsibilities in the office in terms of what people do day to day, I think it's an important distinction to kind of look where the confusion may lie. And I want you to look at this through the eyes of a new employee. Now, a new employee coming in that obviously has hopefully been trained ahead of time, just in a general sense, not trained in this specific business or this specific practice, comes in with a lot of responsibilities, there's a lot of training that's thrown at them. So here's, I think, is a very, very good way to get people to have awareness of what their actual responsibilities are. And when you get that awareness, I think the simplest thing to do is to actually break it down into something that they could grasp. They have a go-to place to always go to in terms of what I'm doing, in terms of from the smallest task to the biggest tasks. We all have tasks that are interrelated. On a great team, there's a lot of overlap that exists. So if we were to look at activities that occur, like say, look at it as an activity inventory. In your mind, think of everything that you do in a typical day. And the list will be very long and comprehensive. So when you look at a long list, it becomes confusing about where I prioritize what I do. So what we've decided to do, we've decided to take something, we have what we call 4-block roles. Now the 4 blocks very simply are a way of taking all the information and going ahead and simplifying what these are. Now the awareness that will come out of this will be something that will allow the employee to, number one, key in on certain areas of the role that become priorities. Now obviously there's many, many other things that are done outside of those responsibilities, but arguably if they have those responsibilities nailed, and if they have those responsibilities in their own mind very clear in how that relates to all of these individual activities, I believe you have a great starting point for understanding of what is my responsibility as a new employee in this role. So I think you can get where we're going with this. This is a very significant piece of training that needs to be focused on right away, and even more important, actually to translate that through to existing employees. So if we talk about distilling things down into 4 categories to bring awareness, to simplify things, let's go one step further. Let's peel this back and let's go right back to the number 1 responsibility that everybody has in the entire team. Right from the guy who does the maintenance, to backstage, to front stage, to the dentist, all the way through. Now what that is with everybody is something that we call face-to-face. Now face-to-face, once again, is about building a relationship with your customer. Now, when you understand in your responsibility that to number 1 above all, form some kind of a baseline trusted relationship with your customer, that's where the magic starts to happen. That's where everything else flows along. Now, when we talk about relationship, we talk about appropriate relationships, and we will defer back to our more in-depth discussion that we've previously had that I hope you've already seen on the face-to-face modules that we've done. But the most important thing everybody has in their own way is the face-to-face. And then again, face-to-face could mean somebody in one of their primary responsibilities is dealing with your customers over the phone. We call that ear-to-ear, but technically it's still face-to-face. So if I was to break this introduction down into the 4-block modules, I would say that we like to actually break down activities so we can come out with a simplistic responsibility. The next thing I'd like to do is we'd like to really key into the fact and leave you the impression that everything starts with relationship, and that's for face-to-face. Finally, it's a cool thing for me to do this, and it helps me that I break things down into acronyms, so each individual role will have an acronym with 4 initials in it.